They ask me if I believe in fate. I tell them yes, because I watched a woman step off a train with nothing but 2 empty hands and a wounded heart. And when she left this world 40 years later, she left behind a legacy that still stands. Her name was Ayanna Redsky, and this is the story of the day a town laughed at her, and the day she made them bow their heads. The train screamed into Red Mesa Station like a wounded animal, its iron wheels throwing up clouds of dust so thick you could taste the desert on your tongue. September 1889. 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. The sun hung in the sky like a burning coin. Inside the last passenger car, Ayanna sat perfectly still. She had been sitting like this for 3 days, watching her reflection in the window glass instead of the landscape rushing past. The woman staring back at her was a stranger, 27 years old, but her eyes looked ancient, exhausted, haunted by things no mirror could show. She touched the silver pendant hanging against her chest. Her father had carved it from a Mexican peso before the soldiers came, before they put him in chains for the crime of hunting deer on land that had belonged to his people for 1,000 years, before her mother stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped wanting to live. "Papa," she whispered to the pendant, "I am trying to be brave like you said, but I do not know if I have any bravery left." The train lurched to a stop. Around her, other passengers began gathering their belongings. Families, businessmen, a young couple holding hands and whispering about their future together. Ayanna had no future, only a present that felt like drowning and a past that felt like fire. She picked up her suitcase. Everything she owned was inside. 3 dresses, a photograph of her parents taken before the world ended, the bundle of dried sage her grandmother had pressed into her hands before pneumonia took her on the reservation where doctors would not come because Apache lives were not worth the trip. The platform was crowded when she stepped down. Ranchers in dusty boots, women in faded bonnets, children chasing each other between freight crates, their laughter sharp as breaking glass. But when Ayanna emerged from the train car, every conversation died. She was tall, nearly 6 feet. Her shoulders were broad, her arms strong from work. Her skin was the color of copper in firelight, and her eyes were black as volcanic glass. She wore a simple brown cotton dress, thin at the elbows, the hem stained with 3 days of travel. In her left hand she clutched the suitcase so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She did not smile. She did not wave. She simply stood on that platform, chin high, back straight, while 40 pairs of eyes examined her like she was livestock at auction. A woman near the water tower covered her mouth. "Lord have mercy. Look at the size of her." A child no more than 7 pointed. "Mama, is she a giant?" "Hush now," the mother said. But she did not stop staring. And then Simon Carver appeared. He pushed through the crowd like he owned every inch of ground beneath his feet. And perhaps he did. Carver owned the bank, half the land, most of the businesses in Red Mesa. He was 44 years old, wearing a black suit that cost more than most folks earned in 6 months. His hair was slicked back with pomade. He wore leather gloves even in the heat. His boots were polished to a mirror shine. His eyes were the color of winter ice. When he looked at Ayanna, something flickered across his face. Not surprise, not disappointment, something colder, something that made her skin crawl. He did not speak at first, just circled her slowly like a man inspecting a horse he was considering buying. The crowd watched in silence, waiting. Finally Carver stopped in front of her. He was shorter than her by 3 inches. He had to look up to meet her eyes, and she saw the hatred bloom there like poison flowers. "You are Ayanna Redsky," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it worse. "Yes," she answered. Her throat was so dry the word barely came out. Carver tilted his head. "I paid good money for a wife. The matrimonial service promised me someone suitable, someone who would fit into my household, someone who understood her place." He paused, let the words hang in the hot afternoon air. "You are not what I ordered," he continued, "but perhaps you will do for other purposes." The way he said purposes made her stomach turn. Ayanna forced herself to meet his gaze. "I came here to be a wife, as the contract stated, nothing more." Carver smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "Of course. A wife. How civilized." He turned to address the crowd, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen of Red Mesa, I present to you the woman I have brought here to join our community. I am sure you will all make her feel very welcome." The crowd said nothing. Some looked away, others whispered behind their hands. No one smiled. Carver turned back to Ayanna. "Come. My carriage is waiting. We have much to discuss about your new duties." Something in his tone made her hesitate. Some instinct that had kept her alive through years on the reservation, through watching her parents die, through all the times men had looked at her like she was something to be used and thrown away. She took one step back. "I would like to know what duties you mean." Carver's smile froze. His hand moved just slightly toward the inside of his coat. "Whatever you mean them to be, of course. You are my property now. The contract is legal and binding. I am not property." The words came out stronger than she felt. Around her she heard gasps, a few nervous laughs. Carver's face went very still, very cold. "You will learn," he said quietly, "that in this town things are exactly what I say they are. Now come." He reached for her arm. And that is when the other man appeared. He had been standing there the whole time, leaning against the water tower in the shade. Tall but not imposing. Maybe 6'1", thin in the way of men who work too hard and eat too little. He wore a brown vest, patched at the elbows, denim pants worn pale at the knees, and a hat so faded by sun it was impossible to tell what color it had once been. His eyes were gray, the color of stone after rain, and he was holding the hand of a little girl. The child was perhaps 4 years old. She had red hair that caught fire in the afternoon light tied back in 2 braids. She wore a simple blue dress with patches at the knees, and she was staring at Ayanna with eyes so wide and curious they seemed to hold the whole world. The man stepped forward. His boots crunched on gravel. The few people still lingering turned to look. This man was known in Red Mesa. Cole Brennan, the rancher who lived alone on Ironwood Ranch 10 miles past the edge of town. The man whose wife had died 3 years ago. The man who had not spoken more than 10 words to anyone since the funeral. The man who came to town once a month for supplies and left without making eye contact. The man everyone whispered about. The man some said had killed his wife. The man who carried his grief like stones in his pockets. He stopped a few feet from Ayanna. The little girl's hand was still clasped in his. She was watching everything with fierce attention, her head tilted slightly to one side. Cole looked at Carver first, then at Ayanna. His face showed nothing, no judgment, no pity, just a careful, measured assessment. Then he did something unexpected. He knelt down. Right there on the dusty platform he lowered himself to one knee so he was at eye level with Ayanna, who had sunk down onto the wooden bench, her legs finally giving out under the weight of humiliation and fear. For a long moment he said nothing, just looked at her. Really looked at her. Not at her height, not at her skin, not at the dress or the suitcase or any of the external things everyone else saw. He looked at her eyes, and in them he saw what she was trying so hard to hide. Terror, exhaustion, the kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from a lifetime of running. The little girl tugged on his sleeve. She was making gestures with her hands, quick, fluid movements that Ayanna did not understand, some kind of language. Cole glanced at his daughter, then back at Ayanna. When he spoke, his voice was low, rough like gravel in a dry riverbed, but not unkind. "My daughter wants to know if you have anywhere to go." Ayanna blinked. She had expected many things. Another insult, another claim of ownership, another man telling her what she was and was not allowed to be. She had not expected a question. "No," she heard herself say. "I have nowhere." Cole nodded slowly, as if this was exactly the answer he had anticipated. The little girl made more hand gestures, fast and insistent. Cole listened with his eyes reading her fingers like some men read books. Then he looked back at Ayanna. "We have a spare room, just for tonight, if you want it." Carver stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "Now see here, Brennan. This woman is under contract to me. You have no right." Cole stood. He was taller than Carver by 4 inches. He did not raise his voice, did not move aggressively. He simply stood there solid as a stone wall and said 3 words. "She can choose." The platform had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Carver's hand went to his coat again. "You are making a very serious mistake," maybe Cole said. "But it is mine to make." He looked down at Ayanna, not waiting for her answer, not pressuring her, just offering. A door left open, a choice given freely. Ayanna felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she had built to survive, because no one in her entire 27 years had ever simply offered her a choice. She stood. Her legs were shaking, but she stood. "Yes," she said to Cole, "yes, I will come with you, just for tonight." The little girl smiled, a huge, radiant smile that transformed her entire face. Carver's expression went black with rage. "This is not over, Brennan. That woman is mine by legal contract. I will have the sheriff." "Then have the sheriff," Cole said quietly. "But tonight she stays with us." He bent down and picked up Ayanna's suitcase. Then he turned and started walking toward the dirt road that led out of town. The little girl stayed close to his side, still holding his hand, looking back at Ayanna every few steps to make sure she was following. Ayanna stood frozen for one more moment. Around her the whispers started again. Where does she think she is going? Man like Brennan does not do charity, probably just wants a servant he does not have to pay. Her cheeks burned. But she thought about her father's last words to her spoken through the bars of a jail cell the night before they took him away forever. "Be brave, little bird, even when the sky is falling. Be brave." She touched the silver pendant. Then she started walking after the stranger and his daughter. The road out of Red Mesa was nothing but dust and silence. The sun sank lower, staining the world the color of old blood. Ayanna walked beside Cole's horse for what felt like hours, saying nothing. Her feet ached in her worn boots. Blisters were forming. But she did not stumble. She had walked farther than this before. She would walk farther than this again. The little girl rode in front of her father on the saddle. Every so often she would turn around and look at Ayanna, not with fear or disgust or pity, just with open, curious interest. Like Ayanna was a puzzle she was trying to figure out. After 5 miles, the child made hand gestures toward her father. He listened, then looked down at Ayanna. "My daughter wants to know your name." It was the first thing either of them had said since leaving town. "Ayanna," she answered. "My name is Ayanna." The little girl smiled again, made more gestures. "She says that is a beautiful name," Cole translated. "She wants to know if you are coming to live with us." "Just for tonight," Ayanna said quickly. "I do not want to impose." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I will not lie to you. I need help. My daughter is deaf. I am raising her alone, and the women in town will not work for me." "Why not?" His jaw tightened. "Because they think I killed my wife." Ayanna looked up at him sharply. "Did you?" "No." The word was flat, final. But underneath it she heard something else, a grief so deep it had its own gravity. "But I could not save her either," Cole continued, "and in a town this small that is the same thing." They walked on in silence. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Red rock, scrub brush, a sky so vast it made her feel small and infinite at the same time. "When is the last time you ate?" Cole asked suddenly. "Yesterday morning," Ayanna admitted. "The conductor sold sandwiches, but they cost $1.25 each. I only had enough for the ticket." Cole reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a strip of beef jerky. It looked like tree bark, dried and dark and tough. He held it out to her. "It is tougher than boot leather, but it is food." She took it, bit down, chewed slowly. It was salty and nearly inedible. But it was the first kindness she had received in 3 days, maybe longer. "Thank you," she said. Cole nodded, did not smile, did not say you are welcome, just acknowledged her gratitude and kept riding. Another 2 miles passed. The moon rose over the mesa, full and white, lighting the vast emptiness around them. Ayana could see shapes now in the darkness. Distant hills. A lone coyote watching them from a ridge before it vanished like smoke. Finally, Ironwood Ranch came into view. It was not much to look at. A single-story house made of weathered wood and stone. A chicken coop leaning to one side. A barn with half its roof missing. Fences held together with wire and stubborn hope. But smoke rose from the chimney. A lantern glowed in the window. It was shelter. Cole dismounted, tied the horse to a fence post. The little girl slid down from the saddle and immediately ran to the door, turning back to wave at Ayana with both hands. "This is it," Cole said. "Ironwood Ranch." Ayana studied the dark outline of the house. "You live out here alone." "Most folks are not worth the trouble of company," Cole said. "Not unkindly. And I am." He did not answer. Instead, he picked up her suitcase and carried it inside. The room was small but clean. A cot against the far wall, a wool blanket, a wash basin. Through the cracked window she could still see the faint glow on the horizon where Red Mesa sat, the town that had spit her out. The little girl appeared in the doorway. She was holding something, a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings. She held it out to Ayana. The drawing was crude, a child's work, but clear enough. A tall woman with black hair standing between two suns. One sun was setting, one was rising. Ayana took the picture carefully. The little girl made hand gestures, quick and earnest. Cole appeared behind his daughter. "She drew that while we were riding. She says you look like someone standing between two worlds. She wants to know which one you will choose." Ayana looked down at the child, at those bright, curious eyes, at the hope written so plainly across her face. "I do not know yet," Ayana said honestly. The little girl considered this. Then she nodded as if this was an acceptable answer. She made one more gesture. Then she hugged Ayana's legs quickly and ran off down the hall. Cole watched her go. When he looked back at Ayana, his expression had softened just slightly. What did she say? The last thing. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She said, 'Welcome home.'" Ayana felt her throat close. She turned away so he would not see her face, but her hands were shaking as she set down the picture on the small table beside the cot. Cole moved toward the door. "I will be in the barn if you need anything. You can leave in the morning, or you can stay. Up to you." "Wait," Ayana said. He turned back. "What is her name?" "Your daughter." "What is her name?" Lily, Cole said. "Her name is Lily. And your wife." "What was her name?" Something shifted in his eyes. A door closing. Mary. Her name was Mary. He left before she could ask anything else. Ayana sat on the cot, still holding the picture Lily had drawn. Outside, the wind howled against the wooden walls. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called out to the moon. She touched her silver pendant one more time. Then she whispered into the darkness, "Papa, I think I found something. I do not know what it is yet, but I think it might be a place where I do not have to run." She lay down on the cot, fully clothed, and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she did not dream of fire or soldiers or her mother's face as she stopped breathing. She dreamed of a little girl with red hair teaching her a language made of hands and hope. Morning came slowly, the sun creeping across the floorboards like something testing whether it was welcome. Ayana woke before the rooster crowed, her body trained by years of rising early to avoid trouble. She had not slept deeply. Sleep was a luxury she had not trusted in years. But the room felt safer than any place she had been in months. No one had tried to hurt her. No one had thrown her out. Her eyes stung with tears she refused to shed. She looked around. The stove was still warm from last night's fire. A wooden chair with a missing leg leaned against the wall. Her suitcase sat quietly where Cole had left it untouched. On a shelf above the stove she saw a tin cup, a plate, a few cooking implements. Everything spoke of one man living alone, surviving with the bare minimum. The door creaked. Ayanna stood quickly, straightening her spine, smoothing her wrinkled dress, preparing herself for whatever came next. But it was not Cole who entered. It was Lily. The little girl stood in the doorway barefoot, wearing a white nightgown. Her red hair was loose around her shoulders, wild from sleep. She was staring at Ayanna with those impossibly wide eyes, as if she could not quite believe the tall woman from yesterday was still here. Lily took 3 careful steps into the room, then she held out her hand. In her palm was a biscuit still warm, wrapped in a cloth napkin. Ayanna knelt down slowly, making herself smaller, less threatening. She took the biscuit. It was the size of her fist, golden brown, smelling of butter and salt. "Thank you," she said softly. Lily tilted her head. Her fingers moved in quick, precise patterns. The same strange language from yesterday. Ayanna shook her head. "I do not understand." The little girl's face fell. Just for a moment. Then she brightened again. She pointed at the biscuit, then at her own mouth, then made an exaggerated chewing motion. Ayanna understood. She took a bite. The biscuit was warm and flaky and tasted like home, though she could not remember the last time she had a home to compare it to. Lily clapped her hands silently, then she grabbed Ayanna's free hand and pulled, insistent, determined. Ayanna let herself be led down a narrow hallway, through a main room with a fireplace and 2 worn chairs, and out onto the back porch. The view stopped her breath. The ranch stretched across hard, unforgiving land. The wind had carved ridges into the red rock. Distant dust devils danced along the horizon. The barn leaned like an old man waiting for the end. But beyond all of that, the sky opened up so wide and blue it felt like falling upward. Cole was at the well drawing water. He moved with the automatic precision of a man who had done this same task 1,000 mornings. His sleeves were rolled up. His hands were scarred and rough. Lily released Ayanna's hand and ran to her father. She tugged on his shirt, made rapid gestures with her hands. Cole looked up, saw Ayanna standing on the porch. For a moment something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or relief, as if he had expected to wake and find her gone. "Morning," he said. His voice was rough with sleep. "Morning," Ayanna replied. Lily made more gestures, urgent now, pointing between Cole and Ayanna and back again. Cole watched his daughter's hands with complete focus. When she finished, he nodded. Then he looked at Ayanna. "She wants to know if you will stay for breakfast." Ayanna hesitated. "I should not impose further. You have already done more than—" Cole held up one hand, stopping her. "My daughter is 4 years old and has not had another woman in this house since her mother died. If she wants you to stay for breakfast, I would consider it a kindness to her, not an imposition." The way he said it made it impossible to refuse. Ayanna nodded. "Then I will stay." Lily's face split into a grin so wide it could have lit the whole desert. They ate at a small wooden table that wobbled on uneven legs. Cole had made eggs and more biscuits and weak coffee that tasted like dirt but was hot and strong. Lily sat between them, eating with her fingers, occasionally making signs that Cole translated. "She says you have kind eyes," he said at one point. Ayanna looked at the little girl. No one had ever called her eyes kind before. Frightening, yes. Strange, certainly. But never kind. "Tell her thank you," Ayanna said. Cole's fingers moved in fluid, practiced motions. Lily watched, then responded with her own signs. "She wants to know if you can stay forever." The question hung in the air like smoke. Cole cleared his throat. "I told her that is not a decision to make over breakfast." But Ayanna saw the way he looked at his daughter, the way his jaw tightened. This man was drowning in loneliness and responsibility, and his 4-year-old child could see it even if he could not. After breakfast, Cole took Lily outside to feed the chickens. Ayanna stayed behind, washing dishes in a basin of water she had heated on the stove. Her hands moved automatically. This was familiar. This she knew how to do. She was drying the last plate when she heard hooves. Through the window she saw a rider approaching. A man in his early 30s wearing a faded uniform and a wide-brimmed hat. His face was sharp, angular. His skin was darker than Cole's but lighter than hers. His eyes were dark and intelligent. A small feather was tucked into his hatband. Cole met him outside. Lily stayed close to her father's side, watching the stranger with cautious interest. Ayanna could not hear their conversation from inside the house, but she saw the way Cole's body went rigid, the way the other man gestured urgently, pointing back toward town. After 10 minutes, the rider left. Cole stood in the yard for a long moment perfectly still before walking back to the house. When he entered, his face was carved from stone. "That was Deputy James Red Feather," he said without preamble. "He came to warn me." "About what?" "Simon Carver went to the sheriff's office this morning. He filed a legal complaint. Says I stole his property. Says he has a contract proving he paid for you." Ayanna felt ice crawl up her spine. "That is not possible. The contract was for marriage, not ownership." Cole walked to a shelf and pulled down a battered tin box. He opened it and took out a piece of paper. "Read this." Ayanna took the paper. It was a copy of the matrimonial contract she had signed 3 months ago, so desperate for any chance at a different life that she had barely read the terms. She read them now. Her hands began to shake. Buried in the middle in language so dense and confusing it seemed designed to hide its true meaning was a clause. Bride agrees to serve in household capacity for minimum period of 2 years or until marriage is consummated, whichever occurs first. Failure to fulfill terms constitutes breach of contract and theft of paid services. "This is not legal," Ayanna whispered. "This cannot be legal." Cole's expression was grim. "In a territorial court with a judge Carver probably owns, it might be legal enough. James says Carver is demanding either you return to his house within 7 days or I pay him $500 in compensation." $500. It might as well have been 5,000. 5 million. She could see in Cole's face that he did not have that kind of money. No one in Red Mesa did except Carver himself. "I will go back," Ayanna said. Her voice was steady even though everything inside her was screaming. "I will not let you lose everything because of me." "No." The word was flat. Final. Cole looked at her directly. "You are not going back to that man. You do not have $500. "No." Cole agreed. "I do not. But I have something else." "What?" "Time. 7 days. And a deputy who does not like Simon Carver any more than I do. James says there might be a way to fight this, but we need to find it." Before Ayanna could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway. She was holding something, a small wooden box carved with flowers. She walked to Ayanna and held it out. Ayanna took the box carefully. It was beautiful, old, made with love by someone who had skill and patience. "Open it," Cole said quietly. Ayanna lifted the lid. Inside was a letter. The paper was yellowed with age, folded carefully, and on top of it a lock of red hair tied with a blue ribbon. Lily made signs. "Fast and urgent." Cole's face went very pale. "Lily, no, that is private." But the little girl was insistent. She pointed at the letter, then at Ayanna, then back at the letter. "What is she saying?" Ayanna asked. Cole's voice was barely above a whisper. "She is saying her mother wanted someone to read it, someone who would understand." "Understand what?" He closed his eyes. "The letter is from Mary, my wife. She wrote it the week before she died. It was meant for Lily to read when she was older. Then I should not." Cole shook his head slowly. "Lily brings that box out every night. She cannot read yet. She does not know what the letter says, but she knows it is from her mother. And for 3 years I have not had the courage to read it to her." He opened his eyes and looked at Ayanna. "Maybe you should read it. Maybe that is why you are here." Ayanna unfolded the letter with trembling hands. The handwriting was careful, feminine, each word formed with deliberate love. She read aloud. The letter was a confession, a farewell, an absolution written in ink that had faded, but whose truth remained sharp. Mary had walked into the creek that winter morning not because Cole had failed her, but because the darkness inside had grown louder than any voice calling her back. She had loved her daughter, loved her husband with a fierceness that made her final act not abandonment but sacrifice. She believed wrongly that they would be better without her. The letter absolved Cole of guilt he had carried for 3 years. It blessed Lily with a mother's eternal love. and in its final lines it offered a gift to whoever might read these words beside Cole in the years to come. "She is a gift," Mary had written. "Do not let her go." When Ayanna finished, her voice was barely a whisper. The silence that followed was absolute. The silence that followed was absolute. Lily stood perfectly still, watching Ayanna's face. The little girl could not hear the words, but she could read emotion like some people read books, and she saw the tears streaming down Ayanna's cheeks. Cole was sitting in a chair now, his head in his hands. His whole body shook with silent sobs he had been holding back for 3 years. Ayanna carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the box. Then she did something she had not planned, something that came from a place deeper than thought. She knelt beside Cole's chair, and she placed her hand on his shoulder. He looked up. His eyes were red, his face wet with tears. "She did not leave you," Ayanna said softly. "She left the darkness. There is a difference." "How do you know?" Cole whispered. "Because I have thought about walking into that same darkness. Many times. And the only reason I did not was because my father made me promise. He said, 'Be brave, little bird, even when the sky is falling.'" She paused. "Your wife made the same promise to Lily. Be brave. That means she knew Lily would have the strength she did not, and she knew you would be here to help her find it." Cole stared at her. Then slowly he reached up and covered her hand with his own. They stayed like that for a long moment, two broken people holding each other up. Lily walked over and wrapped her small arms around both of them. She could not hear the words, but she understood perfectly. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Cole and Ayanna sat on the porch. The sky turned orange and purple. The desert cooled. Somewhere in the distance a coyote sang to the rising moon. "I lost Mary because I was too late," Cole said. His voice was rough. "I did not see the darkness until it had already swallowed her. I will not be too late again." He looked at Ayanna. "I do not know you, and you do not know me. But I know what it looks like when someone is running from something that wants to destroy them. And I know what it feels like to fail someone who needed help. So I am telling you now, you do not have to go back to Carver. We will find another way." "There is no other way. He has the law on his side." "Then we change the law," Cole said simply. "Or we break it. But you do not go back." "Why?" Ayanna asked. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Because Lily has smiled more in the last 24 hours than she has in the last 3 years. Because when I look at you, I see someone who has survived things that should have killed them. And because I am tired of watching good people get destroyed by men like Simon Carver." He stood, looked out at the darkening desert. "Tomorrow we go see Deputy Red Feather. We figure out what Carver is really after. Because men like him do not go to this much trouble over a matrimonial contract. There is something else, something he is hiding, and if we cannot find it, then we improvise," Cole said. "I have gotten good at that." He walked to the door, then paused. "You can leave in the morning if you want. I will not stop you. But if you stay, we fight this together." Ayanna sat alone on the porch for another hour. She thought about her father, her mother, the reservation, the train platform, Simon Carver's cold eyes, and the way he had said purposes like it was a threat. She thought about Lily's drawing, a woman standing between two suns, one setting, one rising. She thought about Mary's letter, "Do not let her go." And she thought about the fact that for the first time in her life, someone had offered her a choice and meant it. When she finally went inside, she found Cole sitting at the table cleaning a rifle. He looked up. "I am staying," Ayanna said, "not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I am tired of running, and because your daughter deserves to keep smiling." Cole nodded once. "Then tomorrow we start." "What do we start?" "Finding out what Simon Carver does not want us to know." Ayanna sat down across from him. "And how do we do that?" Cole looked at her with those steady, unwavering eyes. "We ask the one person in town who hates him as much as we do." "Who?" The woman who runs the matrimonial service? The woman who sent you here?" Ayanna felt her breath catch. "Margaret Sullivan." Cole set down the rifle. "James told me something else today, something he has been investigating for 2 years. You are not the first woman Carver has brought to Red Mesa through matrimonial services. You are the 8th. 8, Ayanna whispered. "And of those 8 women," Cole continued, his voice hard as iron, "6 have disappeared completely. No records, no graves, nothing." The room seemed to tilt. "What happened to them?" Ayanna asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Cole looked at her steadily. "That is what we are going to find out, before you become number 7. Outside, the coyote called again, lonely and fierce, a survivor singing to the night. Inside, 2 people made a silent pact, to stand, to fight, to refuse to disappear. And in her small room, Lily slept peacefully, holding the wooden box with her mother's letter, dreaming of a tall woman with kind eyes who had finally chosen to stay. 2 weeks passed like water over stone, slowly, steadily, changing the shape of everything. Ayanna did not leave. Each morning she woke expecting to feel the urge to run, the old familiar panic that had kept her moving for years. But it never came. Instead, she woke to the sound of Lily's bare feet padding down the hallway, to the smell of coffee brewing on the stove, to the quiet rhythm of a life that did not require her to be invisible. She worked, not because Cole demanded it, but because idle hands made her think too much. She repaired the chicken coop, replacing rotted boards with timber Cole brought from town. She mended fences. She learned which hens laid eggs and which ones were just stubborn. She cooked meals that were simple but filling, using the dried beans and cornmeal from the pantry. And every evening after Lily went to bed, she sat with Cole at the kitchen table while he taught her sign language. The lessons were quiet, methodical. Cole's hands moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a man who spent his days breaking horses and mending barbed wire. Each gesture was precise, deliberate, a language built not on sound, but on intention. "This is hello," he would say, bringing his hand to his forehead in a small salute. Ayanna would copy the motion. Her hands felt clumsy, too large. But Cole was patient. Again he would say, "Slower this time." They worked through basic words. Yes, no, please, thank you, water, food, home. Home was 2 hands forming a roof over the head, then moving to rest against the cheek. The gesture felt intimate, like carrying shelter inside your own body. One evening, nearly 10 days after she had arrived, Cole taught her a phrase that made her hands shake. "I am here," he said, demonstrating. One hand placed flat against the chest, then both hands opening outward, palms up, offering. Ayanna tried to copy him, but her hands trembled. The gesture came out wrong, uncertain. Cole reached across the table and gently placed his hands over hers, not controlling them, just steadying them. His touch was warm, calloused, solid. "You are not just surviving anymore," he said quietly. "You are here, with us." Ayanna looked down at their hands, his covering hers. She could not remember the last time someone had touched her with gentleness instead of violence or ownership. She tried the sign again. This time her hands did not shake. "I am here." Cole nodded. His gray eyes held something she could not name. Relief, maybe, or recognition, like seeing someone finally step out of shadows into light. "Good," he said. "Now teach Lily tomorrow. She will be happy." The next morning, Lily found Ayanna in the garden pulling weeds from the small vegetable patch Cole had started years ago and let go fallow after Mary died. The little girl appeared beside her like a ghost, barefoot and silent, holding a wooden doll with yellow yarn hair. Lily tapped Ayanna's shoulder. When Ayanna looked up, the child made a rapid series of signs. Ayanna shook her head. "Slow. I am still learning." Lily's face scrunched in concentration. Then she repeated the signs, slower this time, deliberate. Ayanna recognized a few words. "Come. See. Something." The little girl grabbed her hand and pulled. Ayanna let herself be led across the yard, past the barn, up a small hill behind the house. At the top of the hill, stood a single cottonwood tree. Old, massive. Its branches spread like arms holding up the sky. Beneath it were 3 wooden crosses. Ayanna stopped walking. Lily pulled her forward anyway, insistent, unafraid. The crosses were simple, handmade. The names carved deep into the wood. Mary Brennan, beloved wife and mother, 1860 to 1886, and 2 smaller crosses, so small they broke Ayanna's heart. Daniel Brennan, 1885 to 1886, Ethan Brennan, 1885 to 1886. Twins, Ayanna whispered. Lily made a sign, the same gesture over and over, 2 fingers pressed together, then separated, then brought back together. Brothers, Ayanna realized. She is saying brothers. The little girl nodded. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down on the ground beside the graves and patted the earth next to her, inviting Ayanna to sit. Ayanna lowered herself slowly. The grass was dry and brittle, the earth hard beneath her. Lily picked up a smooth stone and placed it on Mary's grave. Then she looked at Ayanna expectantly. Ayanna understood. She found her own stone, placed it beside Lily's. They sat in silence. The wind moved through the cottonwood branches with a sound like water, like breathing. Lily leaned against Ayanna's side, just rested there, a small, warm weight. Ayanna put her arm around the child without thinking, and felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking, opening, like a seed splitting to let something new grow through. "Your mama loved you very much," Ayanna said softly, knowing Lily could not hear the words but hoping somehow the meaning would carry through touch, through presence. Lily looked up at her, made a sign. Ayanna did not know this one, but the little girl was patient. She repeated it, one hand over her heart, then reaching out toward Ayanna. Later, when they returned to the house, Ayanna asked Cole what the sign meant. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "It means I love you." That evening, Deputy James Red Feather returned to the ranch. This time he was not alone. He rode in with an older woman. She was perhaps 60, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a dark blue traveling dress and sat her horse with the posture of someone accustomed to long journeys. Her face was weathered but handsome. Her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Cole met them in the yard. Ayanna stood on the porch watching. "This is Margaret Sullivan," James said as they dismounted. "She has information you need to hear." The woman looked at Ayanna. Her expression was unreadable. "You are Ayanna Redsky," she said. It was not a question. "Yes." Margaret took a breath. "Then I owe you an apology and an explanation." They gathered around the kitchen table. Lily was napping in her room, exhausted from the morning's adventure. The 4 adults sat in the dim afternoon light while Margaret Sullivan told a story that made Ayanna's blood run cold. "I have been running matrimonial services for 23 years, Margaret began. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she spoke. "I have helped hundreds of women find husbands in the Western Territories. Good men mostly, hard-working, respectful." She paused. "But occasionally men would lie in their applications, misrepresent themselves, and I was not always careful enough in vetting them. Simon Carver came to me 5 years ago," she continued. "He was charming, educated, wealthy. He spoke eloquently about wanting to build a family, about respecting partnership. He paid well, very well." "How much?" Cole asked. $300 per match. Ayanna felt dizzy. That was more money than most families saw in a year. "I arranged 8 matches for him over 5 years," Margaret said. "You were the 8th Ayanna. The others were all women of color. Apache Mexican, 1 freed slave, 1 Chinese woman from San Francisco." "And what happened to them?" James asked, though his face suggested he already knew. Margaret's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. 6 disappeared within months of arriving. No records, no bodies, no trace. The local authorities said they must have run away, back to reservations or Mexico or wherever they came from. But I knew. Deep down I knew something was wrong. "Why did you not stop?" Ayanna asked. Her voice was hard. "Because I am a coward," Margaret said simply. "Because Carver's money kept my business alive through hard times. Because I told myself I was imagining things, that surely no one could do something so monstrous and get away with it." She looked directly at Ayanna. "Until you walked away from him at that train station, until Cole Brennan took you in. That was the first time any of the women escaped Carver's control. And that is why he is so determined to get her back," Cole said. "Not because of the contract, because she is proof he does not own everything he touches." "Worse than that," James interjected. "I have been investigating on my own, quietly. Carver has been buying land all over the territory using deeds that do not add up. I think he has been using the women as leverage somehow, marrying them quickly, getting them to sign over property rights they did not know they had, then making them disappear." "But I have no property," Ayanna said. "Not you, personally," James agreed. "But your father did. Before he was arrested, he owned a small parcel of land near the reservation, 20 acres with water access, prime grazing land. When he died in custody, that land should have passed to you as his only heir." Ayanna felt the room tilt. "I did not know." "Carver knew," Margaret said. "I saw the paperwork myself. He specifically requested a bride who was Apache orphaned and had a deceased father. He was very precise about the criteria. He wanted my land." "He wanted to own you," James corrected. "The land was just a bonus, a way to legitimize theft through marriage." Ayanna stood abruptly, her chair scraped against the floor. "So everything, the advertisement, the letters, the promises, all of it was a lie to steal land that belonged to my father." "Yes," Margaret said. "I am so sorry. Sorry does not bring back 6 women." The words came out sharp as knives. Margaret flinched but did not look away. "No," she agreed. "It does not. But maybe stopping him from taking a 7th will count for something." "How?" Ayanna demanded. "He has the law. He has money. He has a sheriff who does whatever he says." "He has something else too," James said quietly. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket. "A secret he has been hiding for his entire life." He laid the paper on the table. It was old, a birth certificate dated 1845. Simon Carver, born to Jonathan Carver and Nayland Carver. Ayanna stared at the name. "Nalin, that is an Apache name." James nodded. Simon Carver's mother was Apache. Full blood. She died giving birth to him. Jonathan Carver, his father, kept it hidden, raised Simon as white, told everyone his mother was Mexican. But I found the original records buried in the territorial archives. Cole leaned forward. "So Carver has been hunting Apache women because he is trying to destroy the part of himself he hates." "Not just destroy," James said. "Erase. If he can own them, break them, make them disappear, then maybe he can prove to himself that the Apache blood in his veins does not matter, that he is not one of them." "He is one of us," Ayanna whispered. "And he has spent his whole life running from it." The room fell silent. Finally Margaret spoke. "I brought something else." She reached into her bag and pulled out a leather-bound ledger. "This contains records of all 8 women I sent to Carver, names, dates, last known addresses, and copies of the contracts they signed." She slid it across the table to James. "If you can find even one body, you can connect Carver to murder. And I will testify to all of it." "You will lose your business," Cole said. "I already lost my soul," Margaret replied. "I would like to try finding it again before I die." James took the ledger. "This is enough to open an official investigation, but it will take time, and Carver's deadline is in 5 days. If Ayanna does not return to him or Cole does not pay the $500, Carver will have legal grounds to seize this ranch." "Then we need more than an investigation," Cole said. "We need proof, and we need it now." "What kind of proof?" Ayanna asked. "The kind that forces Carver to confess," James said. "The kind he cannot hide or buy his way out of." Cole looked at Ayanna. His gaze was calm as deep water. "We need you to go back to him." The words hit like a fist. "No," Ayanna said immediately. "Not really. Cole continued. Just pretend. Make him think you are submitting. Get inside his house. Find evidence of what he did to the others. Absolutely not, Ayanna repeated. You said I did not have to go back. And you do not, Cole said firmly. But if we are going to stop him, if we are going to make sure he never does this again, we need evidence the law cannot ignore. She will be alone with a man who has killed 6 women, Margaret said. That is madness. Not alone, James said. I can be nearby. Hidden, if anything goes wrong. And what happens when he locks her in a room like he probably did with the others, Cole demanded. What happens when she finds something and he catches her? What then? Then I fight, Ayanna said quietly. They all turned to look at her. She stood straighter, met each of their eyes in turn. My whole life men have told me what I can and cannot do, where I can and cannot go, what I am worth, and I have survived by running, by making myself small, by hoping if I stayed invisible, I would be safe. She touched the silver pendant at her throat. But I am not invisible. Those 6 women were not invisible. And if I do not do this, there will be a 7th, and an 8th. And he will keep destroying women who look like me until someone finally stands up and says no more. Cole's jaw tightened. There has to be another way. There is not, Ayanna said. And you know it. The silence stretched like wire pulled taut. Finally James spoke. If we do this, we do it carefully. We have a signal, a way to get you out fast if needed. And we tell Lily, Cole added. His voice was rough. She deserves to know why you are leaving, even if she does not understand all of it. That night, after Margaret and James had left, after plans had been made and contingencies discussed, Ayanna sat with Lily on the little girl's bed. Cole had explained as best he could using signs and simple words. Lily's face had gone very still, very serious. Now the child looked at Ayanna with eyes too old for her 4 years. Ayanna took Lily's small hands in her own. Then she made the signs Cole had taught her. I am here. Then she pointed to her own chest, pointed to Lily, and made another sign. I will come back. Lily stared at her for a long moment. Then she reached under her pillow and pulled out the wooden box, the one with Mary's letter inside. She opened it carefully, took out the lock of red hair tied with blue ribbon, and she pressed it into Ayanna's hand. Ayanna felt tears burn her eyes. I cannot take this. But Lily insisted. She curled Ayanna's fingers around the soft red hair. Then she made a sign, the one that meant I love you. And then another sign, one Ayanna had not seen before. Cole, standing in the doorway, translated. His voice was barely above a whisper. She says it is to keep you safe, that her mama's love is strong enough to protect you, even from across the distance between this world and the next. Ayanna pulled the little girl into her arms and held her tight. She could feel Lily's heartbeat, quick like a bird, brave like her father, trusting like her mother must have been before the darkness came. When Ayanna finally left the room, Cole was waiting in the hall. You do not have to do this, he said. Yes, I do. Why? Why risk everything? Ayanna looked toward Lily's door. Because that little girl has already lost too much. Because 6 women are dead and their families do not know what happened to them. Because if I do not stand up now, I will spend the rest of my life running. She met Cole's eyes. And because you taught me that surviving is not the same as living. Cole reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender it made her breath catch. When you come back, he said. Not if. When. We are going to build something here, you and me and Lily, something that lasts. What if I do not come back? Then I will come get you, Cole said simply. I failed Mary. I will not fail you. They stood in the dim hallway close enough that Ayanna could feel the heat coming off his body, close enough to see the way his pulse jumped in his throat. She wanted to kiss him, or wanted him to kiss her. She was not sure which, but instead she just nodded, stepped back, gave herself distance before she lost the courage to leave at all. 3 days, she said. That is how long I need. 3 days, Cole agreed. And then I bring you home. Home. The words settled into her bones like a promise. That night, Ayanna lay awake holding the lock of red hair. Outside, the desert wind sang against the house. Inside, she could hear Cole moving in the next room, restless, worried. She thought about her father, about the land he had owned that she never knew existed, about the fact that Carver wanted to erase her the same way his own father had tried to erase his mother. She thought about 6 graves that did not exist. 6 women with names and stories and families who would never know what happened to them. And she thought about a little red-haired girl who had given her the most precious thing she owned because she believed love was stronger than death. Ayanna pressed the lock of hair against her heart. "Be brave, little bird," her father's voice whispered in her memory. "Even when the sky is falling." Tomorrow she would walk back into Simon Carver's house, back into the place where 6 women had entered and never left. But this time she would not be alone. This time she would be fighting for something bigger than her own survival. This time she would refuse to disappear. The Carver mansion sat on the edge of Red Mesa like a monument to stolen wealth. 3 stories of whitewashed adobe and dark wood, iron gates, manicured gardens that seemed obscene in a landscape where everything else fought for water, windows that reflected the sun like blind eyes. Ayanna stood at those gates on a morning so still it felt like the world was holding its breath. She wore her best dress, the one she had been saving, dark green cotton with buttons up to the throat. Her hair was pulled back severely. The silver pendant was hidden beneath her collar, and tucked into her boot where no one would think to look was a small knife Cole had given her the night before. "If you need it," he had said, "use it. Do not hesitate." She had nodded, but they both knew a knife would not save her if Carver truly meant her harm. Deputy James Redfeather was positioned half a mile away, watching through field glasses from a rocky outcrop. The plan was simple. Ayanna would present herself to Carver. She would claim to have seen the error of her ways. She would submit to whatever role he demanded, and while playing the part of obedient bride she would search for evidence. Letters, journals, anything that proved what happened to the 6 women who came before her. 3 days. That was all the time they had before Cole would come, law or no law, and pull her out by force if necessary. 3 days to find proof of 6 murders. Ayanna pushed open the gate. A servant answered the door. A Mexican woman, perhaps 40 years old, with tired eyes and hands that trembled slightly when she saw Ayanna. "I am here to see Mr. Carver," Ayanna said. The woman's eyes widened. She started to say something, then stopped. Finally, she just stepped aside, her face carefully blank. The interior of the house was cold despite the desert heat. Dark wood paneling, expensive rugs, furniture that looked like it had never been sat in. Everything perfect, everything controlled. "Wait here," the servant whispered and disappeared down a hallway. Ayanna stood in the foyer, her heart hammering. She counted her breaths, remembered Cole's hands over hers, steadying them, remembered Lily pressing the lock of red hair into her palm. "I am here," she signed to herself. "I am here." Footsteps on the stairs, heavy, deliberate. Simon Carver descended like a king approaching his throne. He wore a burgundy smoking jacket and black trousers. His hair was perfectly combed. His face showed no surprise at seeing her. He had been expecting this. "Miss Redsky," he said. His voice was smooth as oil. How unexpected, and yet not unexpected at all. "I have come to fulfill the contract," Ayanna said. She kept her voice level, submissive, everything she was not. "Have you now?" Carver circled her slowly. The same predatory examination from the train platform, but this time his smile was satisfied, triumphant. "And what changed your mind?" "I spoke with a lawyer in Santa Fe." Ayanna lied. "He explained that the contract is legally binding, that if I do not fulfill my obligations, Mr. Brennan will lose everything. I cannot allow that. He has a child to care for." "How noble," Carver said. The words dripped with mockery. "So you have decided to sacrifice yourself for the sake of a man you barely know and his deaf daughter." The way he said deaf made Ayana's hands curl into fists, but she kept her face neutral. "I have decided to honor my agreement." Carver stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell tobacco and expensive cologne, close enough to see the coldness in his pale eyes. "Excellent," he said. "Then let me show you to your quarters." He led her upstairs, down a long hallway lined with closed doors. At the very end, he stopped and produced a key from his pocket. "This will be your room," he said, unlocking the door. "You will find everything you need inside, clothing appropriate for your station, toiletries, a Bible should you wish to pray for guidance." He pushed the door open. The room was beautiful in the way a cage is beautiful when gilded. A four-poster bed with silk curtains, a wardrobe of dark walnut, a washstand with a porcelain basin, and on every window bars. Decorative wrought iron perhaps, but bars nonetheless. Ayana stepped inside. Her skin crawled. "Dinner is at 7, Carver said. "You will join me. We have much to discuss regarding your duties." "What duties?" His smile widened. "You will learn soon enough. For now, rest. Acclimate yourself to your new home." He closed the door. The lock turned with a sound like bones breaking. Ayana stood perfectly still, listening to his footsteps retreat down the hall, listening until the house fell silent again. Then she moved. She checked the windows first. The bars were solid. No amount of pulling would budge them. She examined the door. Heavy oak. The lock was new, expensive. She was trapped, but she had expected that. Ayana pulled the knife from her boot and hid it under the mattress. Then she began a systematic search of the room. The wardrobe held dresses in various sizes, all modest, all in dark colors. The washstand drawers contained nothing but soap and towels, but when she knelt to look under the bed, her breath caught. Scratched into the wooden floor so faint it was almost invisible were words. "Help us. Basement. Maria." Ayana's heart seized. She ran her fingers over the letters. They were carved deep, desperate, recent. Maria was alive, or had been alive when she wrote this. Ayana spent the next hour searching for any other signs. She found them. Tiny marks. A fingernail scratch on the window frame. A thread of black hair caught in the wardrobe door. A water stain on the ceiling that suggested the room above had flooded at some point. This was not just a room. It was a holding cell. And she was not the first woman to be locked inside. At 7 o'clock the lock turned. The same Mexican servant from before stood in the doorway. "Dinner," she said quietly. "You must come now." Ayana followed her down the stairs through the cold hallways to a dining room that could have seated 20 people, but only 2 places were set, one at the head of the table, one to the right. Carver was already seated. On the table beside his wineglass sat a leather journal, old, worn, the binding cracked with age. He gestured to the empty chair. "Sit." Ayana sat. The servant brought soup, thin broth with pieces of meat floating in it. The smell made Ayana's stomach turn. "Eat," Carver commanded. She picked up the spoon, forced herself to swallow. It tasted like ash. Carver watched her with those ice-cold eyes. "You are wondering what happens now?" Ayana said nothing. "Let me show you," he said. He opened the journal and turned it so she could see. The handwriting was cramped and precise. Dates, names, amounts of money, and at the bottom of one page an entry that made Ayana's blood freeze. September 12, 1862. Disposed of the Apache whore. Child survived. Raised him as white. No one must know. "Your father killed your mother," Ayana whispered. Carver's jaw tightened. "He freed me from her, gave me a chance at a real life, without her savage blood contaminating my future." He closed the journal with a sharp snap. "And I have spent my life honoring his sacrifice." He leaned back in his chair. "Perhaps you would like to know what happened to the others. The women who came before you." His voice was conversational, pleasant, as if discussing the weather. 8 women in 5 years, all of them thinking they were coming here to be wives, all of them realizing too late what they actually were. What were they? Carver leaned back in his chair. Tests. Every one of them was a test to see if I could look at Apache blood, Mexican blood, Negro blood, and not see my mother's face staring back at me. So it is true, Ayanna whispered. Your mother was Apache. Something dangerous flashed in Carver's eyes. My mother was a mistake my father made. A moment of weakness he regretted for the rest of his life. She died giving birth to me, and thank God for that because it meant I could be raised properly. As white, as civilized. But you are not white, Ayanna said. You are one of us. Carver's hand slammed down on the table so hard the dishes jumped. I am nothing like you. I have spent my entire life proving that. Building this empire, accumulating wealth, establishing myself as a pillar of this community. No one knows what my mother was. No one suspects. Except you suspect yourself, Ayanna said quietly. Every time you look in a mirror, every time someone mentions Apache, you see her, and you hate yourself for it. Carver stood abruptly. His face was white with rage. You know nothing. I know you have been killing women who look like your mother because you think if you destroy enough of us, you can destroy that part of yourself. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Carver smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Ayanna had ever seen. You are smarter than the others, he said. They cried, begged, tried to escape. But you understand. He walked around the table, stood behind her chair. Ayanna's hand moved toward her boot before she remembered the knife was upstairs. I am going to enjoy breaking you, Carver whispered near her ear, because you have something they did not. Hope. And hope makes the breaking so much more satisfying. Where are they? Ayanna asked. The 6 women. Where did you put them? Carver's hand landed on her shoulder. Heavy, possessive. That would be telling. But do not worry. You will join them soon enough, after you have served your purpose. What purpose? He moved back to his seat, poured himself more wine. You own land, 20 acres near the San Mateo Reservation, water rights, grazing access, land my father tried to buy from your father 20 years ago, land your father refused to sell. So you brought me here to steal it. To acquire it legally? Carver corrected. We will marry. You will sign the deed over to me. And then unfortunately you will have a tragic accident, just like the others. The law will see a grieving husband. I will inherit everything, and another piece of Apache land will pass into the hands of civilization where it belongs. Ayanna felt bile rise in her throat. You are insane. No, Carver said calmly. I am thorough, and I am patient, and I always get what I want. He stood. Dinner is over. Maria will return you to your room. Tomorrow we begin your training. Training for what? For obedience, Carver said. For understanding that resistance is futile. For accepting that you are nothing more than what I decide you are. He rang a small bell. The Mexican servant appeared, but as Maria approached to escort Ayanna back upstairs, their eyes met. And in that brief moment, Ayanna saw something she had not expected. Recognition, solidarity, and the faintest shake of the head. A warning. Back in the locked room, Ayanna waited until the house grew quiet, until she could no longer hear footsteps in the hallway, until even the servants had gone to bed. Then she knelt beside the scratched message under the bed. Help us. Basement. Maria. If Maria Gonzalez was still alive, she was somewhere in this house. And if Ayanna could find her, she would have the evidence she needed. A living witness who could testify to everything Carver had done. But the door was locked, the windows barred, and Carver would be watching her every move. Ayanna sat on the bed thinking. The servant who had brought her to dinner. Her name was also Maria. That could not be coincidence. And the way she had looked at Ayanna, the warning in her eyes. She knows, Ayanna realized. The servant knows where the other woman is. A soft sound made her freeze. A scratching at the door. So quiet she almost missed it. Then a piece of paper slid under the gap between door and floor. Ayanna grabbed it, unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was rushed but clear. I am Maria Gonzalez. I have been here 8 months. He keeps me in the basement. I am pregnant with his child. There are others, 2 more still alive. He plans to kill us all after the babies are born. He wants to raise them as white, as his. The basement entrance is through the kitchen. Behind the pantry there is a hidden door. The servant Maria has the key. She is my cousin. She has been trying to help, but he watches her constantly. If you can get word to the outside, tell them we are here. Tell them we are still alive. Tell them not to give up on us. Ayanna read the note 3 times. Her hands shook so badly the paper rattled. 3 women, still alive, pregnant, being kept in a basement like livestock. This was worse than murder. This was something evil beyond words. She needed to get this information to James, to Cole, to anyone who could help. But she was locked in a room on the 2nd floor of a fortress, and the only person who could help her was a servant, who was probably being watched as closely as the prisoners. Ayanna closed her eyes, thought of Lily's face, of the lock of red hair pressed against her heart, of Cole's promise. When you come back, not if. She opened her eyes. Then she did the only thing she could do. She tore a strip of fabric from the hem of her dress, used the sharp edge of her pendant to scratch a message onto the floor beneath the window. 3 alive in basement. Maria Gonzalez plus 2 others. Pregnant. Carver plans to kill after birth. Send help. A.R. If James was watching with his field glasses, if he checked the window at dawn when the light was right, he might see it. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all she had. Ayanna lay down on the bed still fully clothed, her hand wrapped around the lock of red hair. She thought about Mary's letter. Be brave, my darling girl. Be braver than your mother. I am trying, she whispered into the darkness. I am trying to be brave. Somewhere below her in the black depths of the basement, 3 women waited. 3 women who still had hope that someone would come. Ayanna would not let them wait in vain. Tomorrow she would find a way to reach them. Tomorrow she would get the key from the servant Maria. Tomorrow she would gather the evidence that would destroy Simon Carver and everything he had built on stolen land and murdered lives. But tonight she allowed herself one moment of weakness. One moment where she imagined Cole's arms around her, Lily's small hand in hers. The 3 of them safe at Ironwood Ranch watching the sunset from the porch. That future was still possible. She had to believe it was still possible. Because if she stopped believing, if she let the darkness win, then Carver would have broken her before he even tried. And Ayanna Redsky had survived too much, lost too much, fought too hard to be broken now. Outside her window the desert night sang its ancient song. Stars wheeled overhead. The moon watched with its pale face. And 10 miles away on a small ranch at the edge of nowhere, a man sat on his porch holding a sleeping child, watching the horizon, waiting for dawn, waiting for the signal that would tell him whether the woman he had promised to protect was still alive, waiting to know if he would keep his promise, or if he would have to break every law between here and heaven to bring her home. 3 days, he had said. 1 day was already gone. Dawn came like a held breath released. Pale light crept across the desert, turning the red rocks pink, then gold, then burning white. In the Carver mansion, Ayanna had not slept. She had spent the night watching the window, waiting for some sign that James had seen her message scratched into the floor. Nothing came. At 6 o'clock she heard the lock turn. The servant Maria entered carrying a basin of water and a towel. Her face was carefully blank, but her hands trembled as she set down the basin. "Mr. Carver expects you downstairs in 1 hour," she said. "You are to wear the gray dress, the one with the high collar." Ayanna sat up slowly. Her body ached from lying rigid all night. "Maria," she said quietly, "I received your cousin's note." The woman's face went white. She glanced at the door, then back at Ayanna. Her fingers moved in quick, desperate signs, the same language Cole had taught her. No words. "He listens." Ayanna nodded. She pointed to the floor where she had scratched her message. Then she made signs, slow and uncertain but clear enough. Help comes. 2 days. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from making sound. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small iron key. She held it for just a moment before tucking it back. She pointed down, made the sign for night, then held up 3 fingers. 3 o'clock in the morning, Ayanna understood. She nodded. Maria left without another word. But as she closed the door, she turned back one final time. Her lips moved silently, forming words Ayanna could read even without sound. Thank you. The gray dress fit perfectly. Too perfectly. It had been made for someone Ayanna's exact height and build. She wondered which of the 6 dead women had worn it before her, wondered if their ghosts could see her now standing in this locked room, preparing to walk into the same trap that had killed them. She touched the silver pendant hidden beneath the high collar. Be brave, little bird. Downstairs, Carver was waiting in what he called his study, a room lined with books he had probably never read, expensive furniture, paintings of landscapes that looked nothing like the desert outside, everything designed to prove he was cultured, civilized, not the son of an Apache woman who had died giving him life. Sit, he commanded without looking up from the papers on his desk. Ayanna sat. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her face neutral. Everything about her body language said submission, but inside she was counting, observing, memorizing every detail of the room, the layout, the exits, the letter opener on the desk that could be used as a weapon if necessary. Carver finally looked up. You are wondering why I brought you here this morning, to discuss my duties. No. His smile was cold. To show you what happens to women who defy me. He stood and walked to a large oak cabinet against the wall. From it he pulled a leather journal, old, well-worn. He set it on the desk between them. Carver's jaw tightened. He freed me from her, gave me a chance at a real life, without her savage blood contaminating my future. She was your mother. She was a mistake, Carver snapped. A moment of weakness that would have destroyed everything if she had lived. My father understood that. He did what was necessary. He murdered her. He saved me. Carver closed the journal with a sharp snap. And I have spent my life honoring his sacrifice. Every Apache woman I remove from this world is another piece of that contaminated bloodline erased, another step toward purification. Ayanna felt sick. You are killing women to prove you are not one of them, but their blood is your blood. You cannot erase what you are. Watch me, Carver said softly. You will be wife number 8, and like the others you will sign over your land rights. You will carry my child, and then you will have an unfortunate accident. The child will be raised white, civilized, free from the taint of its mother's savage heritage. He leaned forward. Do you understand now? This is not about you. This has never been about you. You are simply a vessel, a means to an end, and when that end is achieved, you will be discarded like all the others. Where are they? Ayanna demanded. The 6 women. Where did you put their bodies? Carver smiled. That would spoil the surprise. But do not worry. You will join them eventually, and your graves will never be found, just like theirs. The door opened. A man entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his ear to his jaw. Ayanna recognized him from Deputy James's description. Bulldog Keller, the hired killer, Mr. Keller, Carver said. Please escort Miss Redsky back to her room. She needs time to contemplate her situation. Keller grabbed Ayanna's arm. His grip was iron. He hauled her to her feet and shoved her toward the door. As they climbed the stairs, Keller leaned close. His breath smelled of whiskey and tobacco. You think someone's coming for you? They ain't. Carver owns this whole territory. Sheriff, judge, half the businessmen in 3 counties. Nobody crosses him. Nobody wins. Ayanna said nothing. Smart girl, Keller said. Keep your mouth shut. Do what you're told. Maybe you'll last longer than the others. He threw her into the room so hard she stumbled. The door slammed. The lock turned. Ayanna stood in the center of the room shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Carver had just confessed to murder, to kidnapping, to a plan to kill her and 3 other women. But his confession meant nothing if she could not get word out, if she could not provide proof. She needed that basement, needed to find Maria Gonzalez and the 2 other women, living witnesses who could testify to everything Carver had done. The hours crawled past. Ayanna paced the room, examined every inch of the walls, tested the bars on the windows again, found nothing that would help her escape. At noon the servant Maria brought lunch, cold meat and bread. She set down the tray without speaking, but as she turned to leave, she made a sign, quick and subtle, "Tonight." Ayanna nodded once. The afternoon light changed from gold to amber to deep orange. Shadows grew long. The house settled into evening rhythms. Dinner was brought to Ayanna's room. She forced herself to eat, knowing she would need strength for whatever came next. At 10 o'clock the house grew quiet. Servants retired to their quarters. Carver's footsteps passed her door and continued down the hall to the master bedroom. Ayanna waited. She sat on the bed fully clothed, watching the strip of light under her door, counting her breaths. At 3 o'clock in the morning the lock turned so quietly she almost missed it. The door opened. The servant Maria stood there holding a candle. Her face was pale, terrified. She gestured, "Come, quickly." Ayanna grabbed the knife from under the mattress and followed. They moved through the dark hallways like ghosts, down the main stairs, through the foyer, into the kitchen. The kitchen was large and cold. Cast iron stove, long wooden table, shelves lined with supplies. Maria went straight to the pantry. She pushed aside a shelf heavy with preserves. Behind it was a door, wooden, plain, easily overlooked. Maria used the key from her apron. The lock clicked. The door swung open. A staircase led down into blackness. "They are down there," Maria whispered. 3 women. My cousin Maria, a Chinese girl named Lee, a black woman named Ruth, all pregnant, all being held until they give birth. How long? My cousin has been here 8 months, the others 6 and 7 months. Carver brings a midwife when their time comes, a woman he pays well to keep silent. After the babies are born, the mothers disappear, and the babies. He takes them, gives them to families far away, white families who raise them and never know where they came from. Ayanna felt her stomach turn. "He is stealing their children. He thinks he is saving them," Maria said bitterly, "saving them from their mother's blood." She handed Ayanna the candle. "I cannot go down. He will know if I am gone too long. You have 10 minutes, no more." Ayanna started down the stairs. They were steep, narrow. The air grew colder with each step, the smell of earth and damp stone, and something else. Fear, desperation, the accumulated suffering of 3 women trapped in darkness. At the bottom was another door, this one unlocked. Ayanna pushed it open. The room beyond was larger than she expected, perhaps 20 feet square. 3 beds lined one wall, a bucket in the corner for waste, a single small window high up near the ceiling too small for anyone to climb through, and in those beds, 3 women. They sat up as the candlelight filled the room, blinking, shielding their eyes. "Who is there?" one of them called out. Her voice was hoarse, unused to speaking. Ayanna stepped forward. "My name is Ayanna Redsky. I am here to help you." The woman closest to her was young, maybe 22, Mexican, heavily pregnant. Her hair was long and matted, her dress stained and worn, but her eyes were fierce. "Maria Gonzalez," Ayanna said, "I received your note." The woman's face crumpled. She pressed both hands to her mouth. "You are real. You are actually real. I thought I was dreaming." "I am real," Ayanna said, "and help is coming. 2 more days." The second woman spoke. She was Chinese, perhaps 25. Her belly was round with child. Her face was gaunt. "Can we trust you? You can trust me. How do we know you are not one of his tricks?" "Because I am locked in a room upstairs just like you are locked down here," Ayanna said. "Because Carver plans to do to me exactly what he has done to you, and because I have people on the outside who know I am here." The third woman had not spoken. She was black, older than the others, maybe 30. Her eyes were hard, suspicious. "People on the outside did not help us," she said. "Why would they help you?" "Because one of them is a federal deputy," Ayanna said, "and he has been investigating Carver for 2 years. We have evidence, records, testimony. But we need you, living witnesses who can tell a court what happened here." Maria Gonzalez stood slowly, her hand pressed to her swollen belly. "What do you need from us?" "Everything Ayanna said, every detail, every crime, everything you have seen and heard since you came here." For the next 8 minutes the three women talked. Their words tumbled over each other, a desperate flood of testimony that Ayanna tried to memorize. Maria Gonzalez told of being lured by a matrimonial advertisement, of arriving to find herself trapped, of being forced to sign papers she could not read, of being told she would carry Carver's child and then disappear so the baby could be raised white. Li Wei told of being brought from San Francisco, promised work as a seamstress, instead imprisoned and violated. 7 months pregnant with a child she did not want, but had no power to refuse. Ruth Freeman told of being a freed slave in Texas, of answering an advertisement for domestic work, of being locked in this basement for 6 months, of watching 2 other women give birth and then vanish in the night while their newborns were carried away screaming. "What happened to those women?" Ayanna asked. Ruth's voice was flat. "Dead. I heard the gunshots, 2 shots each, then silence. Keller took the bodies somewhere, burned them maybe. We never saw them again. And the babies, given away, sold, I do not know." Maria said Carver has connections all over the territory, families who want children and do not ask questions about where they came from. Ayanna felt rage burn through her veins like wildfire. This was beyond murder. This was systematic destruction. This was genocide dressed up in the language of salvation. Footsteps above. Heavy boots on the kitchen floor. Ayanna froze. "Someone is coming," Lee whispered. Ayanna blew out the candle. Darkness swallowed the room. She pressed herself against the wall beside the door, gripped the knife in her hand. The footsteps descended the stairs. Slow. Methodical. A light appeared. A lantern held high. Bulldog Keller stepped into the basement. He saw the empty beds immediately, saw the 3 women huddled together in the corner. "Where is she?" Keller demanded. Ayanna moved. Fast. She stepped out from behind the door and drove the knife toward his ribs. But Keller was faster. He spun, caught her wrist, twisted until the knife clattered to the floor. "Clever," he said, "but not clever enough." He backhanded her across the face. Ayanna crashed into the wall. Stars exploded behind her eyes. Keller dragged her to her feet by her hair. "Carver is going to be very disappointed in you. He had such plans." "Let her go," Maria Gonzalez shouted. She threw herself at Keller, clawed at his face. He shoved her back, hard. She fell, cried out, curled around her belly. Keller looked down at her with disgust. "You are all the same, fighting for nothing. You cannot win." He hauled Ayanna toward the stairs. She fought, kicked, bit, but he was too strong. At the top of the stairs, the servant Maria stood with a cast-iron skillet in her hands. She swung it with everything she had. The skillet connected with Keller's skull with a sound like a melon splitting. He dropped like a stone. Ayanna fell with him, tangled in his grip. The servant Maria was sobbing. "I killed him! I killed him!" Ayanna pulled free, checked Keller's pulse. "He is alive, but unconscious." She looked up at Maria. "You saved us, all of us. What do we do now?" "Now we run," Ayanna said. "We get those women out of the basement. We get as far from this house as we can, and we pray that Cole and James are already coming." The servant Maria nodded, wiped her tears, helped Ayanna to her feet. Together they went back down the stairs. Together they helped the 3 pregnant women climb up into the kitchen. Maria Gonzalez could barely walk. Li Wei was dizzy from malnutrition. Ruth Freeman moved slowly, her body weakened by months of captivity. But they moved, because the alternative was dying in that basement. They were halfway across the kitchen when the lights blazed on. Simon Carver stood in the doorway. Behind him 2 more men, armed, ready. "Going somewhere," he said. His voice was calm, almost amused, but his eyes were black with rage. "You have made this very difficult," he continued. "I was going to let you live another week. But now I think we will accelerate the timeline." He gestured to his men. "Take them back downstairs, all of them, and send for the midwife. We will deliver these babies tonight, and then we will take care of the mothers permanently." The 2 men moved forward, and that was when the front door exploded inward. Cole Brennan stepped through the shattered wood with a rifle in his hands and murder in his eyes. Behind him came Deputy James Red Feather, and behind James a dozen more men. Sam Whitehorse, Red Sky Walker, Moses Wright, Thomas Hayes. Every man in Red Mesa who had finally had enough of Simon Carver's reign. "Carver," Cole said. His voice was cold as winter stone. "Step away from her." "You have no authority here," Carver spat. James stepped forward. His badge caught the light. "Federal deputy. And I have warrants for your arrest. Kidnapping, murder, human trafficking. You have no proof." "We have 5 witnesses," James said, "and a basement full of evidence. That is all the proof we need." Carver's men looked at each other, looked at the dozen armed men facing them, slowly lowered their weapons. But Carver pulled a pistol from inside his coat. "If I cannot have them, no one will." He aimed at Ayanna. Cole fired first. The bullet took Carver in the shoulder. He spun, fell. The pistol skittered across the floor. Cole was already moving. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside Ayanna. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, could not speak, could only press her face against his chest and finally let the tears come. "I told you," Cole whispered into her hair, "I told you I would bring you home." Behind them James was putting Carver in chains. The other men were helping the pregnant women out of the house. The servant Maria was crying with relief. It was over. 3 women were saved. 6 graves would finally be found, and the victims given names and dignity in death. And Simon Carver, the man who had tried to erase his own bloodline by destroying women who looked like his mother, would spend the rest of his life in a cell no bigger than the one he had built for his victims. Justice had finally come to Red Mesa. Slow, imperfect, but real. They did not return to Red Mesa that night. The wounded needed care. The survivors needed safety. Sam Whitehorse offered shelter at the Apache camp 10 miles south, where the tribal healer could tend to Maria Gonzalez and the others without questions or judgment. Bulldog Keller regained consciousness as they loaded him into James's wagon. He said nothing, just stared at the iron shackles on his wrists with the dull eyes of a man who knew his reckoning had come. By dawn, federal marshals arrived from Santa Fe. They took Carver into custody along with his 2 hired guns. Carver remained silent as they led him to the prison wagon, but at the last moment he turned back. His eyes found Ayanna one final time. "You think you have won," he said. His voice was hollow, empty. "But you are still what you are." "No," Ayanna replied quietly. "I am exactly what I am, and that is more than enough." The wagon rolled away, carrying Simon Carver toward a future of iron bars and hard labor, carrying him away from the empire he had built on stolen lives and stolen land. Cole touched Ayanna's shoulder. "Let us go home. Home." The word settled into her bones like a benediction. Lily was waiting on the porch when they rode up to Ironwood Ranch 3 hours later. The little girl had been standing there since dawn, Sam's wife had said, refusing to come inside, refusing to eat, just watching the road with those fierce, unwavering eyes. When she saw Ayanna step down from the wagon, she ran so fast her bare feet barely touched the ground, ran with her arms outstretched and tears streaming down her face. She crashed into Ayanna with such force they both nearly fell. Her small hands moved frantically, signing faster than Ayanna could follow. "Are you hurt? Are you safe? Did the bad man hurt you?" I waited like you promised." Ayanna knelt down, cupping Lily's face in her hands. "I am here," she signed. "I came back. I promised you. And I always keep my promises." Lily threw her arms around Ayanna's neck and held on like she would never let go. Behind them, Cole watched with tears in his eyes. Two people he loved holding each other in the morning light. Proof that some things broken could be made whole again. 3 days later, the federal marshals returned. There would be a trial in Santa Fe. Testimony needed, evidence presented. Justice demanded its rituals. But for those 3 days, they were simply a family. Cole taught Ayanna how to milk the cow. Lily showed her how to collect eggs without startling the hens. They ate meals together at the crooked table. They sat on the porch in the evenings and watched the stars emerge. They did not speak of Carver, did not speak of the basement or the women or the graves. They simply existed, together, healing in the quiet spaces between words. On the third evening, as the sun painted the desert gold and crimson, Lily climbed into Ayanna's lap. She made a sign, the one that meant family. Then she pointed at Ayanna, at Cole, at herself. "Us," she signed. "We are us now." "Yes," Ayanna signed back, her vision blurred with tears. "We are us." And when the marshals came the next morning to take Ayanna to Santa Fe, Lily pressed the wooden box back into her hands. "Keep it," the little girl signed. "Mama's love will keep you safe, just like it kept you safe before." Ayanna held the box against her heart as she rode away. But this time she was not afraid. This time she knew she would come back, because she finally had something worth coming back to. The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was the longest 3 weeks of Ayanna's life. Every day she sat in the federal courthouse in Santa Fe watching Simon Carver sit in chains while witness after witness took the stand. Every day she listened to the stories of women destroyed, of families torn apart, of babies stolen and sold, of a man so consumed by hatred of his own blood that he had built an empire on the corpses of those who shared it. And every day Cole sat beside her, solid, steady, a quiet presence that kept her anchored when the testimony became too much to bear. Lily stayed at the ranch with Sam Whitehorse and his wife, safe, protected, waiting for Ayanna to come home. The courtroom was packed from the first day. People came from all over the territory, some to see justice done, some simply to witness the fall of a man they had feared for years. Maria Gonzalez testified on the second day. She was 8 months pregnant now, moving slowly, but her voice was strong as she told the court everything: the matrimonial advertisement, the trap, the basement, the other women she had seen come and go, the screams in the night, the babies carried away, the silence that followed. The defense lawyer, a nervous man from Denver who clearly wished he had never taken this case, tried to discredit her, suggested she was a willing participant, a woman of loose morals who had entered into the arrangement knowingly. Maria looked him dead in the eye. "I was a 21-year-old seamstress from El Paso looking for honest work. Mr. Carver promised me employment. Instead, he gave me a cage. And when I begged him to let me go, he told me I was nothing but an animal that needed to be tamed." Do those sound like the words of a man offering legitimate employment? The lawyer had no response. Lee Wei testified on the third day. She spoke quietly but clearly, described being brought from San Francisco under false pretenses, being locked in the basement, being violated. She did not cry, did not show emotion, just stated facts with the precision of someone who had learned that emotion was a luxury she could not afford. Ruth Freeman testified on the fourth day. She was the oldest of the survivors, the one who had seen the most. She named the 2 women who had given birth before her, described hearing the gunshots, described Bulldog Keller returning with empty arms and blood on his clothes. "Where are those women now?" the prosecutor asked. Ruth's voice was steady. "Dead. Murdered. Their bodies hidden somewhere on Carver's property. Their babies taken. Their names forgotten except by those of us who survived to tell their stories." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Then Ruth looked directly at Simon Carver. "But they had names. Jasmine Turner. She was 19. From Louisiana. She loved to sing hymns. Her baby was a girl, born on Christmas Eve, 1887. She paused. Let the weight of that sink in. And Sarah Moon Dancer. Apache. 23 years old. From the Mescalero Reservation. She could read and write in 3 languages. Her baby was a boy, born in March 1888. Ruth's eyes never left Carver's face. You took them from this world, but you cannot take them from memory. We remember. We will always remember. Carver stared at his hands, said nothing. On the 6th day, the servant Maria took the stand. She was terrified. Her hand shook so badly she could barely take the oath. But she testified about the locked doors, the hidden basement, the screaming in the night, the orders Carver gave to Keller, the babies she had seen carried out wrapped in blankets, the women who disappeared. Why did you not come forward sooner? The defense lawyer demanded. Because I was afraid, Maria whispered. My cousin was down there. If I had spoken, he would have killed her, killed me, killed anyone who knew. So I stayed silent, and I have to live with that choice for the rest of my life. She looked at the jury. But I am speaking now. Better late than never. Better to tell the truth, even if it damns me, than to let him continue destroying lives. On the 8th day, Deputy James Red Feather presented his evidence. 2 years of investigation, records from the matrimonial services, 8 women sent to Carver's address, 6 of them vanishing without trace. Financial records showing large payments to a midwife who had since fled the territory. Land deeds signed over by women who disappeared weeks later. And on the 10th day, they found the bodies. A search of Carver's property had uncovered a small ravine half a mile from the main house. In that ravine, buried in shallow graves, were 6 women. The coroner testified to bullet wounds, to signs of violence, to the fact that all 6 had given birth shortly before death. The babies were never found. On the 12th day, Ayanna testified. She wore a simple blue dress. Her hair was pulled back. The silver pendant was visible at her throat. She walked to the stand with her head high, her back straight. She did not look at Carver, did not give him the satisfaction. The prosecutor was gentle. He asked her to describe what happened at the train station, at the ranch, at Carver's mansion, to tell in her own words what she had witnessed. Ayanna spoke clearly, without emotion, just facts. The locked room, Carver's confession about his mother, his plan to force her to marry him, sign over her land, bear his child, and then die in an accident. When she finished, the defense lawyer stood. He was sweating, desperate. Miss Redsky, he began, is it not true that you entered into a legally binding contract with Mr. Carver? Yes. And is it not true that you violated that contract by leaving with another man? I left because I feared for my life, and I was right to fear. 3 women in his basement, 6 bodies in the ground. I would have been the 10th. The lawyer shifted tactics. You are Apache. Your father was arrested for theft. Is it not possible that you came here intending to defraud Mr. Carver? My father was arrested for hunting on land that had belonged to our people for generations, Ayanna said. Her voice was hard. The only thief in this courtroom is the man who stole women's lives, their children, their futures, and tried to justify it by claiming he was civilizing savages. She leaned forward. I am Apache. I am proud to be Apache. And every woman Mr. Carver murdered was murdered because he could not accept that he was one of us. Because his own self-hatred was so deep, he thought destroying us would destroy that part of himself. She finally looked at Carver. But you are still Apache. Your mother's blood runs in your veins, and nothing you do, no amount of murder or theft or lies will ever change that. Carver's face went white. The defense lawyer had no more questions. On the 15th day, the prosecutor rested his case. The defense called no witnesses. What could they say? The evidence was overwhelming, the testimony damning. The body's proof of guilt beyond any possible doubt. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They returned with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. 6 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of assault, multiple counts of fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Judge Patterson, the same stern man who had presided over Carver's arraignment, looked down from the bench. "Simon Carver," he said, "you have been found guilty of crimes so heinous they shock the conscience of this court. You used wealth and position to prey upon vulnerable women. You stole their freedom, their children, their lives. You justified this brutality by claiming you were somehow cleansing the world of inferior blood." He paused. "But the only inferior thing in this courtroom is your soul. You are a monster, and this court will ensure you never harm another living person." The judge's gavel fell like a guillotine blade. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. To be served in the territorial penitentiary at hard labor. Carver's face crumbled. For the first time since the trial began, he showed emotion. Not remorse, not guilt, just the dawning realization that he had lost everything. As the marshals led him away, he looked back once. His eyes found Ayanna. "You think you have won," he said. His voice was hollow. "But you are still what you are. Still savage. Still less than." "No," Ayanna said quietly. "I am exactly what I am. And that is enough." Outside the courthouse the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold and deep purple, the kind of sky that made you believe in second chances. Cole was waiting at the bottom of the steps. When Ayanna emerged, he held out his hand. She took it. Let him pull her close. "It is over," she whispered. "One part is over," Cole said. "Now the rest begins." "What rest?" "Building something. Living. Being happy. All the things Carver tried to take from you." Ayanna leaned against him, felt his steady heartbeat, his warmth, his absolute solidity. "I do not know how to do those things." "Neither do I," Cole admitted, "but I think we can figure it out together." Behind them, Maria Gonzalez emerged from the courthouse. She was crying, but smiling too. Her cousin Maria was with her, both of them holding each other up. James Red Feather followed. He looked exhausted, but satisfied. Justice had been served. It was imperfect. It had come too late for 6 women. But it had come. "What happens to them?" Ayanna asked, gesturing to the 3 pregnant survivors. "To the babies when they come?" James took a breath. "Li Wei has family in San Francisco. They are arranging for her to return home. Ruth Freeman has accepted an offer to live with a community of freed slaves in Kansas. They will help her raise the child." "And Maria?" James looked at the 2 Mexican women embracing on the courthouse steps. "Her cousin will take her in. Sam Whitehorse has offered them both work at his trading post. They will be safe. They will be together." "And the babies that were taken?" Ayanna asked. "The ones that Carver sold or gave away. Will they ever know the truth?" James's face was grave. "We are trying to trace them. But Carver destroyed most of the records. Some of those children may never know where they came from, who their mothers were, what was stolen from them." Ayanna felt anger rise again. "Even in death he wins. Those children will grow up thinking they are white, never knowing their mothers died to give them life." "They will know they are loved," James said gently. "That is something. Not enough. But something." 3 weeks later, Ayanna stood on the porch of Ironwood Ranch watching the sun rise over the desert. The air was cool, fresh, the smell of sage and creosote drifting on the wind. Behind her the door opened. Small footsteps padded across the wooden floor. Lily appeared at her side. The little girl was still in her nightgown, her red hair wild from sleep. She made the sign for good morning. Ayanna signed back. Her hands moved more smoothly now after weeks of practice. "Good morning, little bird." Lily smiled. Then she made another sign, the one that meant Mama. Ayanna's breath caught. She knelt down so she was eye level with the child. "Are you sure?" Lily nodded. Very serious. Very certain. She pointed at Ayanna, then at herself, then made the sign for family. Ayanna pulled her into a hug, felt the small, warm body pressed against her, felt 4 years of loneliness and grief finally beginning to heal. When she looked up, Cole was standing in the doorway, watching them. his face soft with something she had learned to recognize. Love. Simple and uncomplicated and real. He walked over, knelt beside them both, the three of them in a circle on the porch as the sun climbed higher. "I was thinking," Cole said. His voice was careful, uncertain. "We should make this official. The three of us. A real family." Ayanna looked at him. "What are you saying?" "I am saying marry me. Not because of a contract or an obligation or anything except that I love you. And Lily loves you. And we want you to stay, forever, if you will have us." Ayanna felt tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will have you." Lily clapped her hands silently. Then she threw her arms around both of them, squeezing tight. They sat like that for a long time. Three people who had all been broken in different ways, finding in each other the strength to heal. Later that day, Sam Whitehorse arrived. He brought news. The territorial government had ruled on the land disputes. Every deed Carver had fraudulently obtained was voided. The land was being returned to its rightful owners, including Ayanna's 20 acres. "You are a landowner now," Sam said. "Water rights, grazing access, everything your father fought for, everything Carver tried to steal. It is yours." Ayanna stared at the deed in her hands. Her father's name, her name, written in official ink on government paper. "What will you do with it?" Cole asked. Ayanna thought for a long moment. Then she smiled. "I will share it. With Maria and her cousin. With anyone who needs a place to start over. We will build something there. Not a ranch, not a farm, a sanctuary, a place where women who have been thrown away can come and be seen," Cole said, nodding. "Exactly." Sam's weathered face creased in approval. "Your grandmother would be proud. Your father, too." 3 months later, on a clear autumn day, Ayanna Redsky and Cole Brennan were married under the cottonwood tree on the hill behind the ranch. Mary's grave was there, and the tiny graves of the twin boys. But instead of sorrow, there was joy. Lily stood between them, holding both their hands, wearing a white dress with flowers in her hair. She could not hear the vows they spoke, but she could see the love on their faces. And that was enough. Deputy James officiated. Sam Whitehorse blessed the union in Apache and in English. Maria Gonzalez and her cousin attended. Ruth Freeman had sent a letter from Kansas. Lee Way had sent a silk scarf from San Francisco. It was a small gathering. Intimate. Perfect. When Cole kissed his bride, Lily jumped up and down, clapping, laughing in that silent way of hers. That night the three of them sat on the porch, watching stars emerge one by one. Lily had fallen asleep between them, her head on Ayanna's lap. "Do you think Mary would approve?" Ayanna asked quietly. Cole was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I think Mary would say you gave me a reason to keep living, gave Lily a mother who chose to stay instead of leaving. I think she would say thank you." Ayanna touched the lock of red hair she still kept in her pocket, the one Lily had given her before she went into Carver's house. A talisman, a promise. "I will take care of them," she whispered to Mary's ghost. "Both of them. I promise." The wind rustled through the cottonwood branches, like an answer, like a blessing. 6 months after the trial, the sanctuary opened, a simple cluster of buildings on Ayanna's 20 acres, room for 10 women, a garden, a school, a place where those who had been broken could come to heal. Maria Gonzalez lived there with her newborn son. She had named him Daniel, after Cole's lost child, a way of honoring what had been taken and celebrating what remained. The servant Maria taught sewing and cooking. Ruth Freeman sent letters with advice on teaching children to read. Lee Way sent money when she could, and Ayanna ran it all, with Cole's help, with Lily's constant presence, with the support of a community that had finally learned what it meant to stand together. The first woman who came was Apache, 19 years old, pregnant, alone. She had heard about the sanctuary from someone who knew Sam Whitehorse. When Ayanna opened the door and saw her standing there with nothing but a small bag and desperate eyes, she remembered herself a year ago, standing on a train platform, abandoned, broken, certain she had no future. "Come in," Ayana said. "You are safe here." The girl started to cry, but she stepped through the door. And that was how it began, one woman at a time, one story at a time, one life saved and rebuilt and given a second chance. 10 years later, on a warm spring morning, two riders approached Redsky Commons. The first was a journalist from the Santa Fe New Mexican. The second was a young woman he had brought with him. She could not have been more than 20. Chinese, dressed in the simple clothes of someone who had traveled far on little money. She clutched a letter in her hands. The paper was yellowed, fragile, but the words written on it had survived a decade. Ayana was in the garden when they arrived, teaching 3 children how to plant corn. Her daughter Kai, 9 years old, with Cole's steady gray eyes and Ayana's height. The twin boys, 7, now red-haired like their grandmother Mary. Mrs. Brennan, the journalist, said, removing his hat, "I apologize for the intrusion, but this young woman has traveled from San Francisco to find you. She says her mother was here 10 years ago." The young woman stepped forward. Her English was careful, accented. "My name is May," she said. "I was told my mother died when I was born, that she was sick, that it was a blessing I was adopted by a good family who could give me a proper life." She held out the letter. "But when my adopted mother passed last year, I found this, hidden in her belongings. It is a letter from my birth mother, written the day before I was born." Ayana took the letter. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky but determined. The words were in broken English mixed with Chinese characters, but the meaning was clear. "My daughter, if you are reading this, I am gone. But know that I loved you. Know that I did not choose to leave you. Know that a woman named Ayana Redsky tried to save me. If you ever find her, tell her I forgive her for not being fast enough. Tell her I am grateful she survived. Tell her to keep fighting. Your mother, Li Wei." Ayana's vision blurred. She looked up at the young woman standing before her, saw Li Wei's eyes staring back, the same fierce intelligence, the same quiet strength. "You are Li Wei's daughter," she whispered. May nodded. "The family who adopted me were kind. They gave me education, opportunity, but they also told me I should forget where I came from, that I should be grateful to be raised as white, as civilized." She paused. "But I am not white, and I do not want to forget." She looked at Ayana with eyes that held both hope and fear. "The letter says you knew my mother, that you were with her at the end. I came to ask if you would tell me about her. Tell me who she really was. Tell me who I really am." Behind Ayana, Cole appeared from the barn. Lily, now 15, came running from the schoolhouse, her hands already moving in sign language to ask who had arrived. The twins stopped playing and moved closer, curious about the stranger. And in that moment, surrounded by the family she had built and the community she had created, Ayana saw the circle completing itself. A daughter stolen 10 years ago had found her way home, not to a mother, but to a truth. "Come inside," Ayana said, her voice breaking. "Come inside. I have so much to tell you about Li Wei, about how brave she was, how she fought even when fighting seemed hopeless, how she loved you with her last breath." She took May's hand. "And I will teach you everything your mother wanted you to know, about where you come from, who your people are, what your blood carries. You will never be lost again." That evening, as the sun set over Redsky Commons, Ayana stood on the porch with Cole beside her. In the garden, Lily was teaching May sign language, their hands moving in the golden light. The twins were showing May their collection of stones from the creek. Kai was telling her about the school, about the children who came from everywhere to learn here. Inside the house, Maria Gonzalez was preparing dinner. Her son Daniel, now 10 years old, was setting the table. Ruth Freeman's letters from Kansas sat on the mantel next to a silk scarf sent by someone who had once been Li Wei. No, Ayana corrected herself. Not sent by someone who had once been Li Wei, sent by Li Wei herself. Through the daughter she had loved enough to let go. Cole slipped his hand into Ayana's. "You did it," he said quietly. "You brought them all home." Ayana touched the silver pendant at her throat. the one her father had carved before the soldiers came, before the world tried to break their people. "Not all of them, Papa," she whispered, "but enough. Enough to prove that we cannot be erased, that our stories survive, that our children find their way back." She looked at May, laughing with Lily, two girls from different worlds learning each other's languages. "We did it together," she amended. "All of us." The wind carried her words across the commons, over the fields where 73 people now made their lives, past the cottonwood tree where Mary rested beside the twins, up into the vast blue sky. And somewhere in whatever place the dead watched the living Lee Wei smiled. Her daughter had found the truth, and the woman who had tried to save her had kept fighting, just as Lee Wei had asked in that final letter, just as Ayanna had promised herself that night in Carver's basement. Some promises take 10 years to keep, but they are kept nonetheless. The journalist took his notes and left the next morning. But May stayed. She stayed to learn, to heal, to discover, and eventually to teach others. Because that was the legacy Ayanna had built. Not a sanctuary where broken people came to hide, but a commons where lost people came to be found. That was the victory. That was enough. Behind her, Cole worked the far field with Sam Whitehorse and Red Sky Walker, their voices carrying on the wind. The commons housed 73 people now, a schoolhouse, a clinic, a chapel where 3 faiths shared the same space. "What would you say," the journalist asked, "to others who feel powerless?" Ayanna smiled, the same smile that had once been so rare it transformed her whole face. "Dig your well, plant your seeds, stand your ground. The water will come. It always does. For those who refuse to stop digging." She turned back to the children, showing them how to press seeds into the earth with care. Lily was there too, 15 now, teaching the younger children sign language, building bridges between those who could hear and those who could not. The journalist watched for a moment longer, then he rode away, carrying a story that would be retold for generations. Not about a woman who was rescued, but about a woman who became a refuge. And that legacy, built on courage and refusal and hope, would outlast them all. As Ayanna straightened from the garden, her hand went to the silver pendant at her throat, the one her father had carved before the soldiers came, before the world tried to break her. "Be brave, little bird." "I did it, Papa," she whispered. "I stood, I fought, I survived, and I built something that will stand long after I am gone." The wind carried her words across the commons, over the fields, past the cottonwood tree where Mary rested, up into the vast blue sky. And somewhere in whatever place the dead watched the living, her father smiled. His daughter had not just survived, she had transformed her pain into purpose, her trauma into triumph, her brokenness into something beautiful. She had refused to disappear, and in refusing she had made sure that no woman who came after her would have to face that darkness alone. That was the legacy. That was the victory. That was enough.